Welcome back to the latest episode of Zoom into Success, the bite-sized podcast where we speak to seasoned entrepreneurs and the everyday person trying to start a side hustle. So we've got an awesome guest on today. So if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi guys, my name is Jassy from Your Property Ventures. A little bit about myself. Started as a dentist, did that for a few years, and then started slowly getting into property more and more. And now it's pretty much my main hustle.
That's awesome. I mean, in terms of like, it's quite an interesting path, right? I mean, dentistry, I imagine, is probably quite well paying and obviously set you up to get into property. But what actually gave you that step to get into property? Because I think a lot of people have got that interest of, being in a career and getting into property. I mean, it's certainly been a aspiration of mine. How did you get into property?
Yeah, a lot of people ask me that. Okay, so I mean, if I'm completely honest, dentistry was one of those things that my parents kind of said, like,
Pushed you
you've got to
in.
do something.
Okay.
Yeah, you've got to do something. I had the choice of a dentist, doctor, pharmacist, and optician. So I had four
Yeah.
choices, and at the time, for some reason, dentistry stuck out. So that's the one I went with. Why did I move away from it? I think inherently, I don't like the idea of working till I die. So the whole idea of making income passively or accumulating wealth kind of like really resonated with me. Luckily, I've got some friends that are in property, one in particular who kind of showed me what he was doing, and kind of like it was quite an open book actually, showed me his operation. And then I started to kind of like just emulate that bit by
Yeah.
bit. And it just took off, and then it just snowballed. And yeah,
You're
now
then
here
able
we
to
are.
do it full time because I do like I really hate the term passive income and I'm not a believer in it because well for the most part I think until you build to a point where you can make passive income and that only comes through assets that generate you an income, that's pretty much the only way to get passive income. Otherwise there are some touch points and I mean even for you right now, I guess you're making capital appreciation but there is still some management. Obviously, you've got the risk associated with that as well. So, I think
Yeah,
I think a
yeah.
lot of people. Go on.
So keep hitting you off. Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say that I think a lot of people like go into property with the long term of it being a great way to finish working at a younger age, right? Because you can make huge amounts of wealth through property and building, a property portfolio.
Yeah, I mean, I use the words passive income because people recognize what that means, but in all reality, there's no such thing.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, even when you got a huge portfolio, you're still managing it. There's nothing passive about it. Although you might not be dealing with the tenants yourself, your managing agents are, and ultimately they're going to come to you, so you're overlooking all of it.
Yeah.
So I don't actually manage any of my tenants now. I did when I first started because I wanted to learn how it all worked and everything. But now I don't manage any of them. But it still takes time out of my week because I'm getting messages off my agents. This is going on. This is going on. So it's never truly passive. I mean, even if you sat there and you left a property and didn't even rent it out, you're gonna get like letters from the council saying do this, do that, do that.
Yeah.
It's never
The
gonna be
owner has
passive.
to, as much as you can give it all to a management agent, there's going to be touch points forever, right? I mean, I guess like, and also to keep the capital appreciation, you need to make sure the house is in top condition. Unless there is some way that you never see that house again, and you move to the other side of the world, and you've just got somebody that manages it in your name and never has to talk to you, and you just get the money they send you it. That's the only way. But yeah. But okay,
Yeah, only the fake gurus will tell you that's real.
well, there's quite a lot of them, unfortunately. That's obviously why I started my business, right? Was the
All over.
everyone slaps the word passive income, and funnily enough, like I'm going a bit off topic here, but I done a Facebook reel, and it got like 20,000 views, and obviously it went on
Oh,
Instagram and it didn't, TikTok it didn't, but on Facebook it popped, and literally the hook was, here's ways to make passive income, and then literally it was a massive like cue to everyone because I was just like ripping off of the whiteboard saying, yeah, you can't make passive income, it doesn't exist.
yeah.
But like, yeah, the gurus will tell you otherwise. So obviously, property was sort of the investment vehicle that you went down. Did you go for a specific strategy, or have you sort of scattergunned it? Have you gone buy to let? Have you gone HMOs? Like, what's the route that you took?
Yeah, so I started off. The first one I did was a flip. and that was
Flip, yeah.
kind of just like test the
Cash
waters.
build, get your feet
Yeah,
in the water.
see what it's about, in and out kind of thing. And I did quite well on that one. That was my first one. I bought it for 80 grand. I spent about 15 on it, and I sold it for 115.
Wow,
And I did that within 6 months.
that's awesome.
Yeah, then after that, I was like, oh, this works
Got
out
a bit
quite
of a
well.
high. You got a bit addicted. You're like, let's go again.
I need to try another one of these. Then I did a BRR, which was basically we bought a house. I bought it for, I think I bought that one for 125. I spent less than a grand doing it up. I just needed to clean the carpet. Some of the walls had damaged a bit.
A new bit of paint.
Um, yeah, well, yeah, repainted the whole thing. But I only had to pay for the materials because my brother did the painting for me. I just took him out for mixed school after.
That's
Cheap
it.
labor.
You say, here you go. Beer and a pizza was always the one for like 6 days of slave labor for them to paint a house.
Hey, you got experience, yeah?
Yeah, yeah.
And then I got that revalued 6 months later at 175. So that was a
Wow.
really, really good uplift. And then after that, I was a bit naive, I got a bit cocky. I thought, yeah, I got this on lock.
You know it. Yeah.
And then I went in with a friend of mine. So there's two of us involved in it, and we bought like a derelict hotel, and then we
Okay.
converted that into 32 bed sits.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was a huge project. Yeah, I was naive and I jumped straight into the deep end. It involved a lot of sleepless nights and stuff like that, but it worked out in the end. So yeah, so that one we did quite well. I've still got that actually. Then after that, we've done everything from like, family houses, HMOs, small blocks of flats, commercial conversions, large HMOs. Like we've got one scheme at the moment where we're putting planning permission for 18-bedroom HMO. Um, and so yeah, I kind of do a bit of everything. If the numbers work,
You
we'll
go with
we'll,
that strategy.
we'll do it.
And
Yeah,
I guess because obviously a lot of people are looking to start in property, right? Like obviously I speak to a lot of people that I want to do deal sourcing, they want to do HMOs, they want to do BRR. I think a lot of people specialize in specific areas of property, but obviously you've very much gone and just done it all. Like what would you be your advice for somebody that's about to start property and is looking at, evaluating the different models? Because I do think that there's probably a logical first step for people to take, depending on the amount of money that they've got. Because I would imagine that, you can't go straight into a commercial to residential type of thing because you need a hell of a lot of cash and you probably want a
yeah.
lot more experience with dealing with all of the different timelines. So what would be your advice?
It's a good question. I think obviously it depends on the person as well. I think flips are a good way to start, simply because you're in and out of a flip, so you're gonna get a kind of taste of what it's like. On social media, for example, everything looked all hunky dory. No one's telling you their losses. And you're going to see people driving around in Lambos and Ferraris, and you're going to think, oh, it's really easy, I can make a lot of money. But in reality, that's not the case. It does take a lot of work. It is stressful. It's not easy. If it was, everyone would do it. So
100%.
I'd say start with a flip. A lot of people talk about deal sourcing and rent to rent, because you don't need a lot of capital to get started, and I get that completely. I've just never done deal sourcing and I've never done rent to rent, so
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure too much about
Yeah.
the thing with rent to rent that I'm not a fan of is I want to own the asset. I'm accumulating wealth. Um, Most of like in property, like cash flow is really nice, but it gets eaten up quite quickly. But when you're refinancing, big projects and you're pulling out a couple of hundred grand, or 40, 50 grand, or even like 30 grand bulk,
Yeah.
of remortgages, that's where you're making the money, and then it's the appreciation of the asset as well.
Yeah, I think it's probably like the things like deal sourcing rent to rent are pretty good for people that haven't got large amounts of money sitting there. Although,
Yeah,
the one thing that I would argue, obviously you need to have enough to usually get a mortgage and have the affordability. But a lot of people, I mean, you'll do it, right? You raise a lot of money for property. And I think a lot of any good property investors will tell you, the art is in building up your black book and having the investor contacts, right?
Yeah, we only started raising finance recently. So last year I raised just under 500,000. Prior to that, it was all my own money.
Oh wow.
So yeah, having investors is good. It certainly supercharges everything, but you've got to have everything else in line. You've got to have the knowledge. You've got to have the relationship with the agents. You've got to have a good build team, solicitors, mortgage advisors, because raising a lot of money is no good if you haven't then got the pipeline of deals and also the ability to execute it. So
Yeah.
I'd probably say it's better to get all your eggs in, all your ducks in a row, and then raise finance, because then it's gonna like really really snowball.
You can absolutely
Yeah,
snow. And
because
I think that's go on.
yeah, otherwise you're paying investors interest and you're just wasting time. You don't want to
Well,
do that when you're paying interest.
yeah, 100%. And I think learning is a huge step. Obviously, you had a friend
Yeah,
that was able to teach you. Mentors can help people, but like if you do these things without, it can become very costly, right? If you don't do it with the right
yeah,
knowledge, because you make
100%.
mistakes and they're quite costly most of the time. So obviously that's obviously a lot of the properties that you're focusing on. But are you looking in particular areas in the UK to invest? Like, what are some of the things that you look at when you're looking to invest in a deal? Because I always see people talking about how they're buying, up north. That tends to be a lot of the areas that people buy in. I mean, why aren't you buying in places like London? I appreciate it's more expensive, but what sort of some of the things that you're looking at when you're making a property investment?
Yeah, that's a really good point to pick up actually. So there still is a massive thing about buying up north because it's cheap and you get cash flow. I did that on one property, and it's probably caused me more headache than any other one, and I would never do it again. I learned my lesson.
Yeah,
What you tend to find is with these very high yielding properties, yeah, your gross income is good, but a lot of these tenants are the kind of tenants that they're not gonna pay you rent, or they're gonna pay late. They're gonna trash the place. So when they move out, to get it ready for the next tenant is gonna basically eat up all your profits anyway.
yeah.
So like the net returns aren't always as good as it looks. I personally now I invest within a 35-minute drive of Birmingham, because that's where I live, and also in Milton Keynes, because that's where my business partner is, and he gets some good deals there.
So you do very
Um,
much like your local area rather than up and down the country.
yeah, I'm lazy, bro. I don't want to be traveling too much.
Uh, uh,
Keep it simple. Half an
Yeah,
hour there, half an hour back. It's all
exactly.
good.
And I mean, like for you then, what are the next steps with growing your property portfolio? Because obviously you're doing pretty well, obviously, and you're scaling. Are you going to start looking at other areas? Are you just trying to buy in the same area? Because surely at some point it gets to a point, because obviously there's quite a lot of property investors in the UK. There's obviously a few of you
Yeah.
guys in Birmingham. I know we met in Birmingham last year. Like, what is the at what point do you start looking at other areas? Is it when there's just you can't find any deals when you're ready to sort of execute on a deal? Like what are some of those criteria?
I don't know, because I'm not there yet.
That's a good answer, right? I mean, rather than giving a crappy one.
Yeah. In all honesty, I don't think I'd probably venture out of those two areas for a long time, simply because I've got my teams here. I know the agents. We get offered properties, before they come on the market. I've got, about two, three building teams here. If I was to go to another area, I'd have to then find those building teams again. And I'm telling you now, my experience with builders is they are very, very difficult to deal with. Oh my God.
Yeah, I heard a lot
Nothing
of
gives me
horror
high
stories.
blood pressure than builders. Solicitors are close though.
Yeah, I've
uh,
heard like the project management skills of going into property are probably vital compared to actually sometimes the property knowledge that you have, because of the amount of builders or contractors coming in and out that you're going to have to deal with, multiple competing timelines and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So now that we've got our teams, it's not too bad, because literally I can give them the keys. and they know the spec that we do everything to. We get our kitchens from the same place, we get our appliances from the same place, we get our carpets from the same place. So it's kind of become more streamlined now. So I mean, refurbing a property now is a lot more simple than it used to be. And I've also got a project manager as well, and they're taking more of an active role now. So I don't, I'm taking myself away from that side of the business because I don't enjoy it as much, and it's not a high income earning task. I should be out there raising finance, getting bigger,
Yeah,
better deals.
getting in the deals and actually building the property portfolio rather than running the day to day. And obviously, I think that's the goal for everyone. What was I guess for the more experienced maybe property investors that are listening and thinking maybe when's the right time? What was the right moment for you to start bringing in maybe like an employee, somebody that you employ, right, to do the project management? Like, what was the right time for you that allowed you to do that?
Yeah, so I don't actually employ a project manager. It costs quite a bit to do that. I just kind of pay them per project, if that makes sense. So
Yeah,
they're kind
okay.
of contracting out. Okay, so I started doing a lot of the stuff myself, and when I say myself, I mean, when I first started, I was going in there. I was, doing first fix electrics with the electrician, second fix. I was doing the plumbing, fitting toilets, fitting
Wow.
sinks, just to understand, like, what
The
it
ins and
entails. So
outs.
that,
Yeah.
yeah. So, like, for example, when I go around a property now and a builder gives me a quote, I know,
Whether they're
what it
pulling your
should
leg or
be.
not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I can be like, bro, this is simple. This is all you're gonna do. You gotta run a cable here, blah blah blah. And I know the building regulations, so it's quite simple for me to like kind of go back and forth with them and get the right price because that's really important. Um, so for me that was really important because I don't like the idea of having someone pulling the wool over my eyes. But I think once you've got a good understanding of how it works, and once you've got enough cash flow where you can afford it, I would say get someone in sooner rather than later, to clear up your time to kind of focus on actually
Focus on
growing the
building it.
business.
And I mean, I think that's sometimes what people struggle with, and it's not just a property thing. I think it's always working out when's the right time to bring somebody into your business because you look at the money coming in and you're like, wow, it's amazing, all this money that I'm making. But like at some point, right, there is only so many hours in a day that you can work on these things without disrupting. So like if you want to take it from this level to the next level, you have to hire someone to take away some items that you're working on to focus on other things, right? So like, it's quite an important thing that people can learn from. And I guess on the property side of things, and I'm quite interested in this, and it's quite a boring question, I guess, but entity structure. How did you deal? Did you go straight into setting up a limited company for your property portfolio, or did you sort of do that like personally?
So I actually still have one in my personal name, but apart from that, it's all in limited companies. Yeah, I mean, if you get in your personal name, it doesn't. Especially if you're high tax, in the
Yeah.
high tax bracket, it doesn't make sense to have it, in your name. You've got to incorporate and move into a company, really.
Yeah, 100%. And I think obviously for anyone that's going to start a property business, maybe just probably go straight into a limited company. If you can see that you are going to build, set those standards early on so that you're in a position to go on and grow. So look, I think that's some fantastic advice. I guess the last question I'll ask you before we wrap up is if you were gonna if you lost all of your properties today, everything that you've built, but you had the knowledge still, what would be day one for you to get back on your feet?
Or is in like how I'd rebuild it, what I'd
Yeah,
start with.
exactly. Yeah. If you were going to start again, you lost all the portfolio, you lost the relationships, you lost the money, but you had all the knowledge. What would you start doing?
Oh, I lost the relationships as well.
Yeah, you
Come
got to
on,
go and start.
can't
You
take
can't.
everything away from me.
Right, 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 right. Basically, I've put your brain into somebody else's head, but it's not Jazzy that they know. It's somebody else. But what are you doing? Because you got the knowledge, right? So you can replicate it, and obviously you are replicating it. So like, what would be the first steps that you would be taking so that if somebody here is listening, thinking, you know what, I'd love to do this. What would be your day one based on the knowledge that you got?
Yeah, I'd start building relationships because that's probably the most important thing. And then I personally would start with flips, because I haven't done deal sourcing of end to end, but they seem, from what I see, like good places to start. I'd start with flips, then I'd go into like single lets, then HMOs, and then build up to larger commercial conversions. That's the order I would do it in, because it's a bit more of a stable way to do it.
Yeah, and I mean, I mean, flips will give you a nice bit of cash, like bulk of cash straight away, right? So I
Yeah,
can definitely see the value in that. So, look, Jazzy, thank you so much for coming on. That was extremely useful, and hopefully, everyone that's listening can now go on and zoom into success in property. Thank you.
sounds good, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers.